Hey there, Jeffrey Scott here with you. I want to talk about a really important topic today. And, as we get older, I think all of us are looking for that magic elixir that's going to keep us from aging. And I think at our company, what we focus on is really regenerative health and understanding, regeneration and repair at the cellular and tissue level. And I felt that the concept of cellular senescence and the role it plays in aging is a really important subject and a really important process for all of us to get a handle on and understand what it does and how it affects our body. So, firstly, what is cellular senescence? Senescence is a very complicated process, but by definition, a senescent cell has moved itself out of the growth cycle, okay? So it can no longer divide, it can no longer proliferate, but it's metabolically active, it's respirating, it's still consuming nutrients from its microenvironment. So the cell functions, it's alive, but it can't replicate, okay? It also changes shape. So a lot of times these cells, they tend to flatten out. So a lot of times these cells don't fit as nicely, into the tissue. Let's call it geography or topography, however you want to look at it. So, the cell just undergoes some changes as it moves into senescence. So what causes senescence? Well, senescence can be caused by a number of different things. Most importantly, can be caused by telomere shortening, which we call replicative senescence. Okay, our cells often have a finite number of divisions they can undergo, and these structures called telomeres, which cap our DNA, progressively shorten with each division. So they really put a limit on the number of times a cell can divide, and when the cell reaches that limit and senses that, hey, there's some damage here, we're going to move ourselves into a state of senescence, okay? Then there's DNA damage senescence, and this is more overt, excessive oxidative stresses, either generated internally or externally. For example, UV radiation, something like that, can cause a number of stresses. Various genetic mutations that the cell may sense are going to have a negative impact and make that cell more prone to a carcinogenic type of event or a hyperproliferation event. That cell will move itself into senescence. And then finally, you've got oncogenic senescence. And this is, an oncogene is really derived from a mutation in a proto-oncogene. And when that oncogene, or I should say when there's a mutation in that proto-oncogene to generate the oncogene, expression of that oncogene can sometimes move that cell into a cancerous type of pathway. And the cell senses that and can go ahead and push that into senescence. So is senescence bad? That's a hard question, because senescence largely has evolved to be a protective mechanism, and much of what I've talked about to this point, you can see that it's largely protective, but there's a cost to that. Senescent cells, as I mentioned, they still metabolize, but they don't proliferate. So they're not participating in any type of healing or growth of tissue, just normal maintenance of the tissue that happens. Cells proliferate to maintain the tissue integrity. That doesn't happen with senescent cells. Senescent cells also secrete really kind of a protein cocktail. Most notably, it's loaded with cytokines, and these are immunomodulators. So when a cell moves into senescence, it needs to let the immune system know, because the immune system is kind of like our body's military. When a cell decides to move itself into senescence, it's kind of crying uncle a little bit, raising its hand saying, hey, come here. And that's what these cytokines do to draw the immune system in. And the immune system will make a judgment whether that cell should be eliminated or left alone. And as we age, that ratio tends to change. And we tend to accumulate more of these senescent cells. But another problem with those mediators I just mentioned, in the short run, talking to the immune system with those cytokines and interleukins and what have you is fine. Okay, it's bringing in the immune system. But over the long run, those components continue to be excreted into the microenvironment of that cell, and it creates inflammation. Okay. And as part of those components that get secreted, there's also mediators that tend to induce adjacent cells to move into senescent states as well. So it gets into this vicious cycle of inducing more senescence, inducing more inflammation that works against us as we age. So is senescence bad? Well, senescence happens our entire life, from embryogenesis to wound healing throughout. Is largely a protective mechanism, but you can see when it's unchecked and it's unregulated, there are certain things that can, with inflammation and proliferation, of senescence throughout a tissue, can potentially have some disadvantages. Is senescence reversible? Largely no. Okay, and don't confuse senescent cells with quiescent cells. Quiescent cells can move in and out of the growth cycle, okay, relatively easily. Senescent cells, it's very, very difficult. Am I going to say it's impossible? No, but the pathways that mediate senescence are very difficult to overcome. In a laboratory, yeah, you could induce a cell to come out of a senescent state, but in vivo, most likely no. So the final question I want to answer, and that you may have, well, how do I control senescence? Well, there's a lot of things you can do, and I want to talk about those on the next video. So complete the form below, click through to the next page, and we'll have a more detailed discussion about how you can control your cellular senescence in multiple ways. And we'll have some of those secrets for you. In the meantime, if I've piqued your interest on cellular senescence and you want to learn more, find us on social media. All the links are below, and we'll be posting a ton of content going in depth in various processes, various components of the senescent cycle, so that you can learn more. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for joining us. Stay regenerative.